Time is Judge Andrew Napolitano, who you may know is also senior judicial analyst at the Fox News Channel. His latest book is Suicide Pact, The Radical Expansion of Presidential Powers and the Assault on Civil Liberties. And Judge, thanks very much for being with us.
Greg, it's very nice to be with you, and thank you for sharing your microphones with me.
The timing of this book couldn't be much better given the controversy raging right now over the president's actions on immigration policy. As you know, his supporters say he's acting within the law. His detractors say he's blatantly unconstitutional in this action. Who's right on one hand, and when this eventually goes to court, whether it's with the state case or anything else, how is it likely to turn out?
Well, the first half of this book, Suicide Pact, is a history of presidential law breaking and presidential law making. And much of that consists of presidents claiming that they have power from some source other than the Constitution to do whatever they want, either because the subject matter is not addressed in the Constitution or because they read it differently than the plain, ordinary language in the Constitution. So we see in this history such off-the-wall things as George Washington cutting off the heads of soldiers under his command who decide they want to go home, even though they were volunteers. John Adams prosecuting people under the Alien and Sedition Acts who presumed to criticize his presidency. Abe Lincoln locking up 3,000 newspaper reporters in the North because they were writing stories that were critical of his war effort. Woodrow Wilson using the FBI to arrest people for speaking German in public and singing German songs and reciting the Declaration of Independence outside of draft offices. And FDR using the FBI to seize gold, privately owned gold jewelry from Americans before he bothered to get a statute making the ownership of it criminal. The second half of the book addresses George W. Bush and Barack Obama in their pursuit of the war on terror. Before I get into a few examples there, I'm going to go to the very end and tell you, the book was finished about 8 months ago, but Barack Obama is helping me to sell the book by the behavior in which he has been engaging in the past 3 weeks, which goes to the essence of this book. The essence of the book is when presidential law breaking is unpunished, unchecked, and not stopped, presidents will continue to do it, and they will rely on the unpunished, unstopped, unchecked, unconstitutional behavior of their predecessors to justify it.
Right now there's a huge debate about what Republicans in Congress should do to check it. What's the right play?
I hate to say this because nobody wants to do it, but they can file all the lawsuits they want. And the court is going to say, tell your client, Mr. Boehner, tell your client, Senator McConnell, that there's a perfectly acceptable constitutional remedy right there in the Constitution. It's bloodless, and they can do it by taking a couple of votes. It's called impeachment. Now, they don't want to do that for political reasons. For some bizarre reason that I've yet to understand, the Republican leadership in Washington believes that if Barack Obama is impeached, I mean charged with violating his oath and refusing to enforce the law, whether he's convicted or not is another story. 2 presidents have been charged, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, and neither was convicted, as I'm sure you know. They believe even if they file articles of impeachment, this is going to elect Hillary president. What? That's a disconnect to me. But again, impeachment is as much a political judgment as it is a legal one. Look, Greg, they could enact a statute that says all these executive orders are illegal and no one's to obey them. And the president could veto that. Let's say they have enough votes to override his veto. They don't, but let's say they do. Let's say they override the veto and the statute becomes law without the president's signature. He's not going to obey that statute. He doesn't obey the laws that were in existence at the time he took an oath to swear to enforce them faithfully. He's certainly not going to obey a statute that was written in order to regulate his behavior when he's already decided that his behavior is going to be the opposite of it. So we have a lawless president here who is not deferring a few 100,000 deportations. We have a lawless president who's saying to 5 million people, you want to stay here? Do A, B, C, D, and E. Where did the A, B, C, D, and E come from? He made them up. They're not even in the statute as it now exists. That effectively denies the public its voice in Congress. Because when Congress writes a law and the president doesn't enforce it, and the president instead rewrites the law, nullifies the law, or writes his own, all of which Barack Obama has just done, he is effectively nullifying Congress. If that's not an impeachable event, I don't know what is.
We're talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano. The book is Suicide Pact, and Judge, as you explained earlier, and is certainly the case for anyone who picks up a copy of the book, this is really an indictment of presidents of both parties from the beginning of American history about the expanded use, and as you would say, unconstitutional expansion of executive power. A lot of folks might be listening and thinking, well, if both parties are a major part of the problem, how does this get reversed?
You know, I have often argued, and you know where I work during the day hours,
Sure.
Fox News, and so sometimes I get my fingers burned when I say what I'm now about to say. I have often argued that the two parties are in sync with each other on the transcendental issues of our day, and the issues they disagree on are the issues around the edges. The three great issues of our day, in my view, are where do our rights come from? Both parties believe our rights come from the government because they have taken our rights away from us by majority vote. Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, and most Americans would tell you our rights come from our humanity. The second and third great issues of our day are war and debt, and both parties believe in perpetual war and perpetual debt. So what is the solution here? The solution is probably to elect somebody like the fellow that wrote the foreword in this book to the White House, but that would presume that there'd be a number of people who agree with him in both houses of Congress. I speak of Rand Paul. Listen, I'm not part of the campaign, and I don't know if he's going to run. I don't know who else is going to run. But in my world view, when the Democrats and the Republicans are on the same side, and it's always bigger, stronger government and smaller and lesser liberty, only a person who truly would break that mold will be able to break it. A middle-of-the-road Republican or a middle-of-the-road Democrat in the White House, a la John McCain, George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, will further this march toward totalitarianism, not stop and reverse it.
Judge, we'll leave it there. I know your time is short. Thank you very much for being with us today.
All the best, my friend. Have a great weekend.
You too, sir. Judge Andrew Napolitano, Senior Judicial Analyst at the Fox News Channel. The new book is Suicide Pact, The Radical Expansion of Presidential Powers and the Assault on Civil Liberties. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America, reporting for WND.com.